Welcome to the Viking Age podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to the Minnesota Vikings. My name is Chris Schad. I write for the Viking Age as well as Zone Coverage and BringMeTheNews.com as well as the Brookings Register. My co-host to my right is Adam Patrick, who is the managing editor of the Viking Age. We do this every Monday and Thursday right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. If you miss us, we're available in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, rate, comment, like, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. Adam, this podcast is very hard to do this time of year. And it didn't always used to be the case, as we were talking about on air, or off air, I guess. In the old regime with Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman, we had a lot to talk about because Mike Zimmer did not give a bleep. I don't know why I'm saying bleep. We swear on this podcast all the time. So, but now it's just kind of like, all right, we're out here at OTAs and yeah, everybody's here and everybody's happy. And there's a couple guys missing, but nothing to see here. We got bloggers hiding in the bushes. We got, we got reporters getting stiff-armed by Jordan Addison.
Oh, yeah.
Just nothing going on, right?
Yeah, it's a little, I would say it's a good thing, though, because most of the stuff that we were talking about and writing about during the Zimmer era or whatever usually wasn't positive. Some of it was, it'd be like the tropes we've talked about in the past, like Anthony Barr, like, oh, he's working with the pass rushers, or is Zimmer going to give up play calling and things like that. So, and then there was other things like, the stuff with the Stephon Diggs trade and everything, and him not showing up to OTAs, and then Danielle Hunter and his injury and his contract. So, yeah, it's less exciting now with OTAs. I don't think OTAs haven't really provided a lot, even during the Zimmer and Spielman era, but they provide even less now, and I think that's kind of the goal of the current regime is like we don't need to create any news unless there is any. Kevin O'Connell's going to tell you a lot without telling you anything. That's basically his goal with every answer and every press conference. He's not gonna, he might tell you the truth, but he's not gonna dive deep and talk about where exactly Justin Jefferson is, what exactly their plans are with Dalvin Cook, where Mike Zimmer might have been like, Dalvin's not here, and if he wants to play, then he should be here.
Mike Zimmer would cut like a 5-star promo at Justin Jefferson, if you want to play, you're gonna come here and we're gonna run gassers until you puke. And then we're gonna run routes, and then we're gonna do all this stuff because I'm Mike Zimmer, and that's how Bill Parcells did things.
Didn't he say that with Adrian Peterson when Peterson was trying to do his little holdout after his suspension or whatever? And Zimmer was like, well, if Adrian wants to play next year, then he needs to show up here. And what do you know, like a day or two later, oh, look, there's Adrian Peterson popping up at Vikings practice. So, yeah, I think he'd have a lot more to say on the Justin Jefferson situation and Dalvin Cook situation. Even Danielle Hunter, he'd probably have a lot to say about that too.
Well, let's start with the Justin Jefferson situation. Sounds like there's some steam. Mark Rosen said yesterday on the power trip after about 45 minutes of fart jokes, watch out in the next 48 hours for Justin Jefferson. And somebody asked, I can't remember who it was.
Is that the most off-season statement ever? Watch out.
Watch out for that.
Watch out for what?
Justin Jefferson is going to sign with the Timberwolves. Watch out for that.
Watch out.
Justin Jefferson is going to be a reliever for the Twins.
I love that. That's like an off-season tweet. Watch out. Keep an eye on.
Best shape of his life.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're playing the off-season drinking game, go ahead and crack one open there. But, they asked him, good news? And Mark Rosen said, let's hope so. That's comforting. But nothing yet. as we're recording this on Thursday morning. So let's go back to Kevin O'Connell's press conference on Tuesday, where he was asked about Justin Jefferson's whereabouts. And he said, quote, "I hope to see him as soon as possible. I think our participation amongst the whole team has been so good that we're able to get great work, and we'd love to have him here, obviously. But I think as we work towards minicamp, we have a real clear-cut plan of what that looks like, and hopefully get him some work. I know a lot of guys would be excited to see him." Are you nervous about this at all? Like, if we're doing like the old, what was the terror scale? Like, where are we in the blue? Are we in the red? Is it purple? I don't know.
No, I'm not worried about it. I was thinking today, like, I wouldn't even be worried if he didn't go to OTA, mandatory minicamp or whatever. If he doesn't show up to training camp, yeah, you can worry. But even I know people are going to be worried too if he doesn't show up to mandatory minicamp. But like, it's 2 or 3 days, and he's going to be able to afford whatever fines come his way if he doesn't get that. Because I think right now his contract is priority number one, and it should be because he deserves to be paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to do anything to jeopardize that, which includes getting hurt during OTAs and during a meaningless practice. Which I think I was listening to Purple Daily the other day. I think Judd or Phil or somebody made a good point that Justin Jefferson is on his own right now in a controlled environment. If he comes to OTAs and they're doing 11 on 11 or 7 on 7s, there's way less control, especially when it comes to what other people do, when he's going up against teammates and stuff. Because we saw yesterday or 2 days ago where KJ Osborne got a little banged up because one of the cornerbacks landed on him and it kind of knocked the wind out of him. I think it was Andrew Booth, actually. And, that happens to Justin Jefferson, everyone's freaking out. So, his agents are like, why don't we just stay here? You can still work out and everything, but you're not going to have to worry about anyone else falling on you or anything. There's still chance of injury, but it's way lower than it is, if you're going out in 7 on 7s because they want you to go full speed or 11 on 11. So being in the controlled environment it's smart on his part to not jeopardize his contract because that's the top priority. And I think it's going to be done. There's no reason why it shouldn't get done. It's just probably little details here, trinkets there, when the money kicks in, guaranteed money and all that stuff. I did look up who his agent is right before we got on. He has 3 agents. He's with CAA. And some of the guys that are on his team or whatever have negotiated the deals for Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa. So we're dealing with people who've worked with pretty large contracts already. So they know what they're doing. It's not a Ben Dagra situation, if anyone knows that name.
Didn't he fight Rob Brzezinski
yes,
at St. Elmo's or something?
Yes. In the convention center or whatever, I think, or in whatever field it is.
That
Lucas
sounds
Oil.
like old school WWE. Like, remember in
he posted
the
the hat
90s?
with he had the Bucks hat on or whatever too. Remember that?
Yeah.
He posted the picture of
yeah. Remember the late 90s though, in like WWE, like the APA would always go to the
bar.
Tim White, who was a referee, he owned a bar called the Friendly Tap, and every time they needed like something fit, like they needed to replace the walls or whatever, like, oh, why don't you guys just beat the shit out of each other in my bar and we'll just write it off.
So I'm not worried yet, and I really won't even be worried if he doesn't go to mandatory minicamp. I know people are going to make a big hoopla out of it. I'm probably going to write about it like, should we be worried about it?
Get them clicks, baby. We don't write quick clickbait like other sites. I'm just saying, like, we just gotta make a living.
I'm gonna get them regardless. Okay.
Everybody gets these clicks.
Yeah. But no, I'm not worried about it because we haven't heard anything to be concerned about when it comes to either from Justin Jefferson's camp or the Vikings. We haven't heard any reports from Ian Rappaport or Tom Pelissero about concerns about getting a long-term deal done or anything from Adam Schefter. So there's no reason for anyone to be worried about it. It might just take a little longer than some people expected. Justin Jefferson is going to be fine. Justin Jefferson could show up the day before their first game and he'd still be really good. So, no, I'm not worried right now.
Like, There's a couple of things here. I was reading a story on Aaron Rodgers in The Athletic this morning
I
that
saw
actually
that. I have
dropped.
not read it yet.
Yeah, and he mentioned, how little the progress is in OTAs and minicamp and that sort of stuff. Might want to show up when all your receivers are rookies and like second year players. But and he might be on acid while he was like making that phone call or whatever. He might have thought he was talking to like, Bowser of the Mushroom Kingdom or whatever when he was doing that interview. But I agree with you. Do not put him in harm's way, especially when we're hearing all this stuff about Brian Flores' defense and how they're installing attitude and whatever. And it's like, you want to wail on KJ Osborne? Fine. You
We'll
want to
talk about
wail
Aaron
on
Rodgers
Justin?
too. He got the calf thing or whatever at OTAs, and that's the stuff you got to worry about.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, KJ Osborne's important, obviously, but if you want to wail on like Jalen Naylor or somebody, go for it.
Yeah.
If you want to wail on Justin, I don't think so, especially when the guy's trying to make life-changing money when it comes to his next contract. And this isn't a Le'Veon Bell situation. It's not a situation where the Vikings are saying, well, we're not going to pay you. And Jefferson's like, why aren't you going to pay me? And then he sits out and smokes weed and eats McDonald's for a year. The Vikings have let Justin Jefferson in on their conversations this offseason. We heard about that. It's very NBA-like unless you're the Timberwolves and trade for somebody at the exact same position and turns out to be a shit show. But, there's no sign saying the Vikings aren't going to do it. So I don't know. I mean, when it comes to Justin Jefferson, when it comes to Neil Hunter, I'm not concerned. I think both guys are going to wind up getting paid. They're just trying to clear the cap space for that to happen. And by the way, today is June 1st. So
yeah. And I don't even know, like, depending on what their extensions look like, if, they need to clear cap space to sign these guys, because they can always either have the extensions begin in a year or two, or push the cap numbers into the future, which they add some void years, which they like to do with this regime, apparently. So I don't even know if I would say that they have the cap space, because they always have, like, what's the thing that people always bring up, like the Brian O'Neill. They can always restructure his deal whenever they need more money. So I think they're even good on cap space when it comes to extending Justin Jefferson and Danielle Hunter. There's somebody else though that I'm still trying to figure out, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. We'll talk about it right now. I kind of hinted at it, right? June 1st.
Yeah.
I feel like you should have alarms, bells, and whistles going off because we've been talking about this day for like 2 or 3 months now. June 1st, everybody's contract changes. Basically, half of the dead money that was owed last year. So like, for example, they cut Adam Thielen in February, right? They ate all of that on this year's cap and just like, all right, just get out of here, man. It probably wasn't like that. It's not sounding like it was like that, but basically that's what it is. Like, all right, we know you're not going to be here. Let's just get you out of here. June 1st is when half that money will transfer over. So in the case of Dalvin Cook, if they had released or traded Dalvin Cook prior to June 1st, the Vikings would have saved $5.8 million in cap space, but $8.2 million in dead cap if they released him. They would have had $7.8 million in cap space and $6.2 million in dead money if they had traded him. But now, since Dalvin Cook is still on the roster, they save $9 million in cap space and eat $5.1 million in dead money if they cut him, and they save $11 million in cap space and eat $3.1 million in dead cap if they trade him. If your head is spinning, don't worry, it's complicated stuff. But does this date make a Dalvin Cook trade more likely in your eyes?
I don't know. Slightly, but it doesn't have to do with the Vikings. It has to do with other teams getting money. And I think the Dolphins are a team that's getting the most money after it's post June 1st. So it starts tomorrow where they get their extra money. I believe they're getting about more than 13 million. The Dolphins are, which would be enough to just trade for Dalvin Cook, not even touch his contract. And they've been one of the teams that's been rumored, even though they re-signed all 3 of the running backs this offseason and drafted someone else who I think they're pretty high on. But they've still been rumored to be in on Dalvin Cook, because that seems to be like his preferred destination if he's going to be traded, because it's Miami. It's where he's from. He would like to play there. But I think there's been more rumblings like the Vikings would either like to do a pay cut or trade him and not release him. There's been, I think Jeremy Fowler of ESPN said yesterday that Dalvin Cook's more likely to be traded than released, and yeah, that makes sense. That goes along with a lot of what they've been saying. If the Vikings are going to move on from Dalvin Cook, they would like to get something in return for him. And if not, then they would like him to stay in Minnesota. And it sounds like Dalvin Cook is more open to staying in Minnesota. Just the whole pay cut thing is something that has to be worked out. So I don't know. I still think him staying in Minnesota right now is more likely than anything, which is weird to say because a couple months ago we were like, he's gone, get him out of here. They don't want him here. And then even after the draft, we're like, oh, they drafted a running back, 7th round. Dalvin Cook's gone. But now it's like, what if he stays? And then that gives someone like Dwayne McBride a year to kind of get adjusted to the NFL. Doesn't have to have a lot on his shoulders, and Dalvin Cook and Madison and Ty Chandler can carry the load of the running back room. I know Kevin O'Connell gave a lot of praise to Alexander Madison yesterday. It was like a 3-down back, and a lot of people took that as like, oh, that means Dalvin's gone. It's like, no, that's just how Kevin O'Connell talks. He boosts guys up in his pressers when everyone asks about it. He's never been like, well, Alexander Madison,
Madison's been running in the back of his offensive line again.
Yeah.
We're hoping he can average like 3.5 yards a carry, but we'll see what
Dalvin
happens.
Cook, but he's what we have right now. So we're just gonna work with what we got. No, he's never gonna do that. But yeah,
if they trade Dalvin Cook, like the running back room is like my biggest concern going into the season. Because I mean, a lot of people are hyped about Alexander Madison, and I don't get it. I don't understand.
A lot of people have been hyped about him for 4 years.
In my question, again, I will go back to this. Kevin O'Connell's, he's a 3-down back. He's great. He's everything. Why did he only get like 75 carries last year?
Yeah.
Like why wasn't he used more? Because honestly, if you think about it, if you had, Dalvin Cook's a home run hitter, why not have Alexander Matt? Was it an ego thing? Was it, were you going to disrupt the locker room or something if you gave Alexander Madison more carries? I mean, he's been on the team for a long time. That was year 4, right? So this feels like the Twins assembling a bullpen where they just go like, oh yeah, well, this guy's cheap and we'll just flip the coin and see if it works. And their bullpen sucks. And they're like, I don't know what happened. This is weird. Like, I get the idea that you want a more efficient ground game, but I also look at Alexander Madison and I see a lot of 2 or 3 yard carries and a lot of home runs. And I mean, the counterpoint to that is, well, they'll just use the younger backs. We haven't seen anything from Ty Chandler.
Right.
Dwayne McBride is out with a hamstring injury right now. Those things are tricky. Like that could linger into the first month of the season. Like if you don't have Dwayne McBride for the first month of the season and you traded Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison sucks, like, I don't know. I don't believe Ty Chandler is going to be this awesome bell cow back that some people think. So, I mean, I think a Cook return is likely, especially it's going to have to do some ego stroking. I think they're going to have to talk to him and be like, hey, dude, you're not going to get 300 for this. Isn't Mike Zimmer football. Like we're going to rotate guys, but it's going to help you. You're going to be fresher and you're going to be able to break more long runs because of it. Like, I think that was the most shocking thing with the running game last year is like Dalvin Cook got everything. And I'm like, why aren't we using Madison more?
For sure. I think they could have like spelled Dalvin Cook more. And I think there's stats to back it up where like Dalvin Cook was really good in his first like 10 carries or so. But after that, his production kind of dropped off, which would lead you to be like, okay, why don't you, after his first 5 touches, why don't you kind of mix some guys in and that way keep Dalvin more fresh. So we can help you in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter. But I wonder if they're going to do something similar to what they've done with like Anthony Barr in the past, where like they keep him, they renegotiate his deal, but they make it so they reduce the length of his deal so that he can be a free agent next year, and then he can re-sign or whatever, or go somewhere else. So I wonder if they're trying to do that, and maybe that's something that will end up happening. But I agree with you. I would say that that's most likely right now is Dalvin returns. I think if you ask Dolphin fans or even Cowboys fans, are like, no. He's going to be released and we're going to sign him. And I'm just like, I don't know about
Yeah.
that. So because Dalvin in the NFL, like I think he's starting to realize like what he has in Minnesota. Is probably like his best case scenario to one, play, and two, get
paid.
anywhere close to what he wants to make. He's not going to make his current amount anywhere he goes. He's not. It's just that's going to be the case. He's not going to make what he's making now anywhere he goes. I think he probably realized that at some point in this offseason. And I right now I would say the chances of Dalvin Cook staying are higher than him leaving. Which is
Let's
weird.
do it.
So weird.
Let's do it this way. This is a bit of copyright infringement to another podcast, but
Okay.
you want to do it? You want to try a pie chart? You want to just rank these? What do you want to do here? Because I got three options: Vikings trade Dalvin Cook, Vikings release Dalvin Cook, and Vikings keep Dalvin Cook.
I can do a pie chart. I'll do 10% release because I think that's a last resort. I think if just talks of anything break down, he's just like, no, I'm not going to play for that, and I'm not going to play for that team if you want me to trade there. So I think that would just be kind of like the DeAndre Hopkins thing that just happened, which is insane to me that they couldn't get anything for him. But it's the Cardinals, and they're like, we got a new GM, and it's like, you're doing the same stupid stuff. You couldn't get anything for DeAndre Hopkins, not even a 7th-round pick. But
a lot of things are turning into like dynasty league trades now, where it's just like I
Just get
remember
him outta
shopping Cook in my dynasty league
Yeah.
last year, and everybody's like, "Why would I do that?"
right.
So he's got 1,100
So I
yards.
think 10% release. I think that's the last resort. I would say, we'll go 55. 55. 55 stay, and then trade. What do I have left? I have 65.
So you'd say 40,
35.
35.
35 trade.
This is like Steiner math.
Yeah.
Normally, I'd say there's a 50-50 chance of Dalvin Cook staying, but he's a genetic freak. So normally there's 85%. Sorry. It's like reflex anytime we start talking percentages. And
speaking of, well, not really speaking of Steiner, but wrestling sidebar. I watched the new episode of Dark Side of the Ring. I think it came on Tuesday. It's the season premiere with Tammy and Chris.
Chris Candido.
Yeah. Love that show. I could sit there and watch those shows all night long. It was good.
I've watched I think I've watched one episode of that whole series.
I think I've watched them all.
And maybe I've seen clips of other, but I watched the Eddie Guerrero one. Or I think
it was Benoit.
I think it was about Chris Benoit, but the first episode was about Eddie Guerrero, and the second one was about Chris Benoit.
Yep.
And that was, I don't want to say it was awesome because Chris Benoit did
it was dark.
He should burn in hell, basically. But
explain to you what he was going through.
Yes. Yeah. Like it was very detailed documentary of that whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have my own wrestling sidebar later in the show, by the way.
Okay.
I gotta get it out on some microphone.
Yeah.
But okay, so I said 85-15 Vikings would probably get rid of Dalvin Cook. So I'm going to use that the same way. So I would say 15% Vikings keep Dalvin Cook. Release, I'm gonna put it at 20%. So I just think that at some point the Vikings have to do something. And I feel like, again,
you think he's gone?
This is like,
you think he's gone?
I think he's gone.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they'll find a trade partner. They'll work out something similar to, because I don't know, you don't sign Alexander Madison to that contract. Then you don't draft a running back in the 7th round. And I know it was the 7th round, and you don't pump up Ty Chandler if he's coming back. Like, to me, that would just be super awkward if he walked into the locker room and, well, Alexander, thanks for re-signing with us, but Dalvin just gave us a deal we just couldn't refuse. And Madison would probably go, well, trade me right bleeping now because I wanted to start. Or maybe, I mean, the whole situation, It's been telegraphed. That's been the biggest problem with this offseason.
Yeah.
Kwesi has telegraphed every move. And some of it wasn't his fault. It was just the people in the locker room. Like Zadarius Smith looks out for number one. He can get in front of a microphone in Cleveland and be like, I'm a team player. I went out and played through this injury. And then he also mentioned, well, I also played through the injury because there's a per game bonus for being active, but I'm a team player. And that's why I had the last year of my contract / because I'm such a team player. Like, he's not as gregarious I don't know. I hope I didn't say any like nasty word on air, but he's not as gregarious when you start messing around with his money. He turns into
Madison's cap is only 2.4 this year, so it's not like he's getting
massive.
Yeah, he's not. He's making backup money.
It's still starter money in the NFL for a running back. The way things are going.
Yeah.
By the time Jonathan Taylor comes up for a contract, they're gonna be like, "You want $1 million a year? What?"
Yeah. Well, that's because Saquon Barkley's still doing his negotiation or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Josh Jacobs, if he signed his tender or whatever.
Yeah, they're all making $10 million this year.
Yeah, so
it's pretty good for.
I don't know with Madison. Like, maybe he wants to stay. Maybe he just likes where he is. Yeah. Some guys just like where they are in the NFL. They don't want to mess that up. They'd rather just take whatever to stay where they are. And maybe he's just happy in his role. He doesn't really get hurt because he doesn't get a lot of touches, but he gets some starts here and there. Maybe he likes it.
So before we go into like stuff outside, anything on the field in OTAs that you have been?
I think some people have written about it, like we said before, like OTAs this year. And really in years past, there's not a whole lot that comes out. You just go from pretty much what people say in the pressers and maybe some clips here and there. Even those are iffy because a lot of them are in slow motion. So
with a beat on the back.
It's a lot of social media, just engagement.
Kirk throwing fullbacks and tight ends.
Yes. Oh, Kirk!
All right, Kirk, it's 4th and 8. We're in the playoffs.
Found Jalen Naylor in the back of the end zone. Great, that's never going to happen. But Jalen Naylor apparently has been just making the most of his reps in OTAs because Jefferson's not there, Addison's not playing, KJ Osborne's a little banged up, so guys like Naylor, Rager, and Brandon Powell are getting more opportunities. And apparently, Jalen Naylor has been doing pretty well with his opportunities, according to, I think, the Athletics' Alec Lewis.
And that's another reason why I'm not concerned with Jefferson there. I would rather see the young
get those guys
more
reps.
Opportunities. Yeah. Justin Jefferson doesn't need to prove that he can run a route. No. Like, let's see Jalen Naylor do stuff.
I think Alec Lewis also mentioned that they've been running some 2 tight end sets, but not like they've been doing traditional, like with both on the line of scrimmage. But there's also been times where Josh Oliver's been on the line of scrimmage and then TJ Hawkinson's in the slot. So that's a, kind of a different look that you might expect out of like a 2 tight end look where usually both guys are on the line of scrimmage, but this time you got 1 tight end in the slot, 1 on the line blocking. So that's something something different. And then I think there's been Cam Bynum has been used all over the place. Nickel corner, deep safety, put in the box. It seems like he's just going to be all over the place if he's used. Same thing with Josh Metellus. I think they're going to just, other than Harrison Smith, I think they're going to use Lewis Cine, Cam Bynum, and Josh Metellus just all in a variety of different ways and just to mix things up to confuse the defense. And maybe Lewis Cine is the starter, but it's not going to be like, okay, you're going to get 70 snaps no matter what. No, I think they're going to mix in guys, have people all over the place, and that'll be something to watch too coming up. We'll see more of that in training camp and stuff. But a lot of backups getting opportunities. I think Harrison Smith just arrived a day or 2 ago, so guys like Metellus and Bynum and Cine were getting more reps. So like the guys not being there, it's not that big of a deal because the younger guys are getting reps, and this is a time for them to get that because you look back to last year when they were rookies and they were like running around with their heads spinning off and everything, didn't know what was going on, especially Cine. It sounds like he's actually doing really well this time around. So a lot of backup lower depth chart guys making the most of their opportunities in OTAs, but nothing, no injuries,
Yeah,
nothing too crazy. I don't think.
I,
Addison's
I'm
not playing because apparently he hurt something at the end of rookie minicamp and are just being overly concerned. That's what Kevin O'Connell said about him. Yeah, so I'm not worried about him either. I don't care if he doesn't practice until training camp because if they're keeping him out of all OTA things, that's usually a sign of like probably a muscle strain or something like that where they don't want it to worsen. And he's their top pick, and they want him to play in next season. So there's no reason for him to worsen it in a meaningless practice. So yeah, that's
I
about it.
am reading, kind of skimming Alec Lewis's story right
Yeah,
now, and it says Ed Ingram's focus is
I saw
pass
that too. Yep.
protection. I sure as hell hope it is. I don't know. Ed Ingram's really interesting to me this year
Yeah.
because I think he did a lot of good things in the run game. If he is just an average pass blocker,
Yeah.
like that, it's just like the defense. Like the
Was he
bar
worse in
is
the
so
league last year?
low. Huh?
Pressure wise?
Yes.
I think so,
Yes.
yeah.
He allowed the most pressures in the NFL. Like if
Yeah.
he's a train wreck and allows like a ton of pressures this year, it's probably over. But if he can take a step, progress, be an average pass blocking, and he's gonna maul in the run game, I'll take that. Like
Yeah,
that's better than
didn't
anything
Ezra
Vikings have
Cleveland
in the
make a kind of a pretty significant jump from his first year to his second year? Obviously he still struggles with pass protection, but it
Mhm.
got better, I think, in his second year. I think first year, especially offensive lineman, it's just weird because you don't have much time in the offseason to really just adjust and you're learning the playbook and everything. And this year Ingram's able to focus on things he needs to improve on. He knows the playbook and everything. He knows the tendencies of the guys around him. So I think, yeah, he's got a better chance to succeed this year, definitely than last year.
Yeah. I don't know. He just one of the players that I'm looking forward to ahead of training camp,
Yeah,
as well as in joint practices.
yeah,
The Vikings aren't just having one joint practice
no,
this year, they are having two joint practices this year. The Vikings will host the Titans the week before their preseason game on August 19th. And they'll also host the Arizona Cardinals before their preseason game on August 26th. Both practices will take place at TCO Performance Center in Eagan. Are you excited for some scrimmages?
I think the Vikings are. I think this has turned into their preseason games pretty much, at least for their starters. So
Yeah.
you can expect the starters probably not to play a whole lot in the Titans preseason game or the Cardinals preseason game. These because I think what they have the Niners last year, and they used those joint practices to really they were pretty physical and everything, and you're able to get a lot more out of those because your side of the ball's on the field the whole time. You're not going every 3 plays, every 4 plays, punting and like in a game. You just get to keep going and going and going. I think the Vikings like that more. Also, Titans and Cardinals are like, yeah, we'll come to TCO. Well, sure, yeah, we'll go to your state of the art practice facility, especially the Cardinals. They're
Yeah.
like, yes,
Yeah.
we will go there.
You want to come over and pray? It's like when you're like when we were kids and like your friend got like an Xbox 360. Like, oh, you want to come? Yeah, I'll hang out with you.
Yes,
Like
yes, I will. We'll get
your parents are too cheap to get you one.
we'll get an up close and personal look of Will Levis. See if the Vikings were right to pass on him, who I think is struggling in OTAs. Not, I don't know what that means, but he's not doing that great. But he's also a rookie quarterback. So we get to see Will Levis, Derrick Henry. That'll be interesting. Vikings trying to tackle him. Maybe, probably not. They'll just push him out of bounds.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, the Vikings will at least know how to stop the run by the end of those Titan scrimmages because that's all they'll do. Like,
Yeah,
how is Will Levis struggling when his like number one play is drop back 3 steps and hand the ball off to Derrick Henry?
yeah. I would say the Titans' practices are probably going to be more physical because of Vrabel, and that's their style under him. Where Cardinals, I don't, I don't know what to expect. I feel like the Cardinals will probably be better for figuring out how to stop maybe like deep, deep receivers, like deep threats, like Marquise Brown and Rondale Moore, guys like that. Keep them from stretching the field. where the Titans, who the Titans have at receiver? They got the rookie last year. I forgot what his name was.
Traylon Burks.
Yeah,
Because at this time this year, it was like, oh my God, he's out of shape. And like no,
he
he's
got
just got asthma.
Yeah.
Not ideal, but
he kind of came along the
Yeah.
end of last year, so that'll be interesting to see how he does. But yeah, that'll be. I like joint practices. I think the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell said they get more out of those than preseason games. So I think this is something for the NFL. Well, the NFL is never going to give up preseason games, especially the owners, because that's just easy money. Because they charge the same price for preseason tickets as they do regular season tickets. So they're never going to give that up unless they get another game in the regular season, which will happen.
And they rope in the season ticket holders to buy those games.
Right. So, no, I like joint practices, and I'm glad that they are both at TCO, because it kind of gives the Vikings players a little more control and familiarity. They know where things are on the field. They know where certain spots are. So it seems like it's probably less of a chance for injury, but you never know because it's football. So.
And it's big enough to house two teams. Like You're not going to have like the 2020 Money in the Bank ladder match breaking out with like people like brawling in the weight room or whatever.
Yeah, and they have the hotel, so the other team can stay there.
Yeah. So. Only the finest for the 10-7 Minnesota Vikings. Last thing I'll say about this whole joint practice thing, I know the players don't exactly like it because it ramps up intensity, especially like the veterans and stuff, but this is basically throwing it back to the old days. The only difference is like, I remember talking to somebody because I used to go to River Falls, University of Wisconsin, River Falls for college, and they would host the Kansas City Chiefs for training camp. Now everybody has a practice facility, so they just hold training camp there, and it's a lot more.
Who got in a fight there?
A fight?
Who got in a fight with the Chiefs in training camp? You remember?
Was that Brock Lesnar?
It was.
It was Brock. That didn't happen in River Falls, though.
I don't know if it happened there or Mankato. It did happen in Mankato.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I miss going to Mankato too, like for training camp. That was always, I only went there a couple of times, but I mean, it just felt like football when you went, like, football season was coming when you went to Mankato. Now I have not been to TCO Performance Center yet.
Ever?
Maybe this year. No.
Oh, wow.
I have not yet. So maybe this is the year I check it out. Maybe one of these joint practices, I'll just say,
I've never been driven by it before.
I've driven by it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge. Yeah. So, but the point I was making is back in the day in Wisconsin, like I think the Bears practiced there, the Saints were there, obviously the Packers, and they would all have joint practice. It was like the Cheese League or something, and they'd have like 4 or 5 joint practices, which I mean, it's better for teams. Like Phil Mackey made this point on Purple Daily the other day that you can control the situations in a practice. Like a preseason game, if your offense goes 3 and out, that's kind of it.
Right.
Like here you go, all right, it's, red zone, 2 minutes left, like, or, 2-minute drill or whatever. You can get the exact situation, and you're playing against a defense that you're unfamiliar with. So you can see how these players react in those situations. I think it's a really good idea. I think that we're going to see more of them. And I think that, like you said, the preseason games are going to suffer, but who cares? Like, really, like, we watch preseason games because we are paid for our opinions for those games. But overall,
the cut system is different this year, right? They have to go. They don't cut until after the final preseason game, so they go from 90 to 53 instead of like
at the end.
10 after the first game, 10 more after the second game. It's all of it.
It's like Major League where they go to the locker and like there's a red tag in their locker.
Yeah. Like half the players from that final preseason game will not be there the next day. They'll be what's his name, Jamal Adams with a key card, failing to get in the building. Which that's a lot. Like, I'm sure they're going to have an idea of who they don't want, but like there's going to be some guys on the bubble and they're going to be like, it's tough. Like that seems like a 90 to 53. That's going to be a lot of and there's going to be a lot of guys too, like that are going to be surprise cuts and it'll kind of be like probably a mini free agency right before start of the season with some of the guys that might get cut too. So I'll have to keep an eye on that.
So everybody waits for their Madden rosters until
yeah.
For a glitchy game, and don't even get me started on that. Let's end with this. The Kevin O'Connell had an interview with SI's Albert Breer. I don't have the quote in front of me. I'm just going to paraphrase it, but basically he insinuated that when Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and himself got to Minnesota, their key plan for last season was to build a culture and then kind of move forward and start this competitive rebuild thing. I don't know, man. That just seems like crap to me. It does, because you and I talked about this a little bit off air, that, he's like, I liked a lot of the things that Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer built here, and I wanted to keep them, and I wanted to build my own culture. Well, all the coaches were basically fired except for Keenan McCardle. So
because of the culture.
Because of the culture. Yes, that's the number one reason Mike Zimmer was fired, because Mike Zimmer wouldn't say hello to people in the hallway. Culture of fear was another word that Eric Kendricks used. Like these are all things that are just coming back to me. But no, Kevin O'Connell's like, I really like this. All the blinds being shut, like the fireplace not being on, no music. This is great. Like, I'm just going to spruce things. Maybe I'm just going to turn the music on a little bit louder and we'll do it that way. That's a cute story.
It was all Kellen Mond, apparently. It was all.
Yes, it was. They just cut Kellen Mond. He was the culture guy.
Him and Sean Mannion. They were just ruining the locker room.
They had to get rid of him. No, it's a cool story, and I believe it too, because when you look at the Vikings right now, that has to be what Kevin O'Connell is selling. Like, after last year, he goes, see what my culture can do. Yeah. Okay, now let's get the players I want, and I'll build this. Like, you got a little taste of what it could be in the future. Now he's getting his own players. But I think when they got in there, the Wilfs said, all right, F Mike Zimmer, he's the problem here. Mm-hmm. We want you to take this group and win as many games as possible. And the Vikings did that. They won 13 games. The culture is markedly different than it was a year ago. But to sit there and go like, oh yeah, I liked a lot of the things that are going on, I'm not buying it.
No. It was definitely a nice way to not say that we weren't really allowed to do anything that we wanted to do with the roster when we first got here. But after we proved that we can win, now we were able to do a little more things and prove to our ownership that we can coach without some of the players that they wanted to keep here forever, like Eric Kendricks, Adam Thielen, and those guys. So yeah, it was. I read that too, and like a lot of things with Kevin O'Connell, press conferences, interviews, it's a lot of
fluff.
Nothing. It's a lot of nothing. You're not going to find out. You're not going to find what you would get from a Mike Zimmer interview. Mike Zimmer is going to shoot you straight. He's going to, whether it's good or bad, he's going to tell you probably what's on his mind, regardless of whose feelings it hurts. Where Kevin O'Connell, he's more concerned about, what if a player reads this, down the road? What if they see this and they they see this and they put it on in their fridge and they're like, oh, Kevin O'Connell hates me or whatever. What are you laughing about?
I am reminded, I think it was Matthew Collins said this, but he made the comment that Mike Zimmer conducted press conferences like he thought it was nobody else was watching.
Right.
Like it was just him and the people in the room. Like,
and like no one's gonna see this.
Nobody. Yeah, Justin. Yeah, I'm pissed at Justin Jefferson. I'm gonna play BC Johnson ahead of him the first.
Was it after the Eagles game? I want to say 2016, where he just called him terrible. And then they were like, "Oh, great.
Soft."
Yeah,
was that it?
Yes.
He called the offensive line soft, and everybody was like, "Well, wait a minute."
He ripped Sharif Floyd, not knowing that his operation went terribly. So that was good. His tweak with
the
Daniil
club
Hunter,
in the tub,
right? Yeah, a lot of that. We mentioned the Adrian Peterson stuff of
Anthony
he's not.
Barr has a tendency to coast. That was a good one.
That was good. Yeah, and or Xavier Rhodes has to play better, things like that. Yeah, he wasn't wrong.
No.
But
Daniel
with
Carlson, did you see the game?
yeah,
Yeah, that sort of
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
But like, there's a I would say a better way to go about that. Maybe keep that in house. Like Kevin O'Connell, he could be the same as Mike Zimmer in the locker room. Like as far as when the cameras are off and meeting with guys like, hey, you really need to improve this. Like we don't know what goes on in the team meeting rooms. He could be like singling out guys and being like, hey, you need to fix this. Don't do this. Blah blah blah. I don't think he's as brash as Mike Zimmer. Uh, he might be more constructive criticism approach than Mike Zimmer. But there, I would say that Kevin O'Connell, who is a former like sideline reporter, knows how to talk to the media. He knows what to say and what not to say. So
I think there is a layer of intensity to Kevin O'Connell that we don't see.
oh yeah,
Like,
sure.
he's like he's like
There has to be.
This is gonna be an
These are
unhinged example, but like the nursing Ben Stiller and Happy Gilmore. Like,
yeah. When he closes
sees
the door,
media, he's like,
yeah,
oh, hey
yeah.
guys, it's great to see you. I hope you had a great Memorial Day. They leave, he locks the door, be like, all right, you bitches are gonna run gassers. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like,
could be for sure. Yeah, maybe
uh,
that's why Zadarius Smith wanted out. He's like, I don't like this.
have you seen this guy? No, this guy's super nice. What are you talking about? You don't really know. Can I go on a very quick wrestling rant to end this here?
Yeah, I'm never opposed to that.
I am still mad about Double or Nothing.
Oh, okay.
I wish I had stuff to do, right? I wish I had this huge, I wish I had a cabin. I wish I was on a lake.
Right.
I wish I was somewhere else instead of watching wrestling last weekend. But I was like, I'm going to make the best of this. I'm going to get Double or Nothing. I'm going to get a big old pizza from George's. I even splurged, got some wings.
Oh, shit.
They were amazing. Little blue cheese with them. Hey, I'm not a big blue cheese guy normally, but that stuff was really good. Pay-per-view was one of the worst I have ever seen. And like, if I watch a bad WWE premium live event, as they're called now, I'm okay with it. Cause it's like, all right, A, it's $10 and B, like, I'm not, when you're asking me to pay $50, don't have your big surprise be a guy that your world champion just a couple weeks ago called Take a Shit Up. Like, and like the Anarchy in the Arena match was really like Adam Cole and Chris Jericho was a bad match. Chris Stadlander beating Jade Cargill, ending a 50 match winning streak was
probably
also
the best moment of the night, though, right?
That's what they say. I was like sitting there, I was like, oh, okay, this is.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't that great, but still, it was like that's
correct.
what you should know about the rest of the event.
Correct. Like Anarchy in the Arena, it was basically like the thing I like about pro wrestling is like when a story is involved. Like on Saturday in the main event, you had this big story with Jimmy Uso kicking Roman Reigns in the head twice as this big, like, oh my God moment. Anarchy in the Arena was like, look at this. We got barbed wire. We got tables. The ref's bleeding. There's an exploding super kick. This guy took a pile driver. Now they're fighting over here. And it's like, all right. Yeah, cool, dude. Like, why are we doing this?
And we wonder why CM Punk like had a problem with those guys, booking stuff and running the show.
And now all the people who are trashed him are welcoming him back with open arms. Like,
well, he's going to be on a different show. Aren't they doing like?
Yes,
they're
doing like a soft brand split.
Yeah.
Collision and Dynamite. I don't know. I know this is a Vikings podcast. I know, but at the same time, like, I don't know. When I dump money into a product, I tend to want to, and we talk about wrestling all the time on the show. So now that everybody has left, I just needed to get it out because I paid $50. I felt like I was robbed. I should have watched NXT instead because the last man standing match was better than anything I had paid $50 for on Sunday night. So
yeah, you felt like
that's basically my rant.
The what was the last pay-per-view? Was it Night of Champions? Yeah, Night of Champions.
Yeah,
you felt like the Rhea and Natalya match was like every match for the AEW pay-per-view because it was just laughable almost.
it was very dragger, and the crowd was really dead. That was the other thing that was just weird. And I don't know, like I saw a tweet where somebody was watching TakeOver while at Double or Nothing.
Yep.
I'm like, well, that tells you all you need to know. But like, it also might have been they were in Vegas from like Wednesday until Sunday. Like, were some of those guys who at the show?
What about the
like,
crowd though?
there?
Like the crowd should be.
Well, that's what I'm
hyped.
saying. So the crowd people,
Yeah,
might have been there for Dynamite
maybe
on
Vegas
Wednesday
isn't
and just
that great
made
of
it
a
a
spot.
long weekend, and they were just burned out by the time they got to Double or Nothing.
I don't think WWE has a lot of pay-per-views in Vegas. I don't think they go there a lot.
Like, they tried Money in the Bank there last year, and they wanted to do it at Allegiant Stadium, but they couldn't sell it out, so they had to move it to the MGM Grand.
That's right.
Which is like a fifth of capacity, and it was actually a decent show. But
yeah, they all have been. Yeah, like I saw someone be like, just have it in New York next year or whatever, or Chicago,
Atlantic City,
Philadelphia. Yeah. Like just a place where you know you're gonna get a good crowd. Don't mess with like what's supposed to be your biggest show of the year, and you're like, oh, the crowd's dead, so now this whole show is ruined because you need the crowd, as we found out in the pandemic. You need the crowd in wrestling.
Yes.
So, yeah, I watched whatever, anything that I saw from the AEW pay per view. I was not impressed. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did watch most of Night of Champions, especially the ending, which was amazing.
I've watched the ending of Night of Champions like 10 times.
Oh yeah, it's got like 10 million views.
It's just awesome.
Social media.
I did what you should have done a long time ago. I got you. Just kicks him in the head again.
No, and guess what? This storyline has been going on for over a year, as so many new branches. And when's the last time we've had a story like that in wrestling? It's been a long time.
And it's not just, we look at things
like,
what could happen at SummerSlam? Now it's like, dude, what could happen like next month? What could happen on Friday when Roman Reigns has his 1,000-day championship celebration? Is he just going to be like, oh, yeah, totally forgot about your brother, man. It's all cool. No, he's going to murder Jay. It's going to be awesome.
In front of like his grandpa and
his entire family. And they could bring in Rikishi.
Oh, he's going to be there.
I love Rikishi.
He's been tweeting and stuff because those are his kids. So he's got something to say. His wife.
Rikishi's the man.
His wife, who is in TNA now? Is it TNA or is it just Impact?
I think it's Impact.
Okay, but TNA. I'm dating
I know
myself.
What you're talking about.
Yeah, his wife's Jimmy's wife is in there. She's been tweeting like, oh, you
Trinity, yes.
You awoke something you didn't want to do, so watch out. But she's not going to be making an appearance because they're done with that.
She's a little upset. Well, this is the Viking Age podcast.
We're talking
with
about
occasional wrestling commentary. What's that?
Talking about Roman Reigns.
Yes, Roman Reigns, Vikings legend Roman Reigns, and we mentioned Brock Lesnar earlier in the show. So lots of old Viking ties when it comes to professional wrestling. But we do this right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel every Monday and Thursday. We're also in podcast form the very next day on Apple and Spotify. However you catch up, make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. For Adam Patrick, I am Chris Schad. We'll catch you next time on the Viking Age podcast.